Executive functions. Doesn't it sound interesting? Such a lovely word, but more than a lovely word or term. Executive functions are the foundation of learning. And what if I told you that they can be powered through play? This is Mariana, and this is another episode of Play Talks. Today, I will be having an amazing friend here in the podcast. We will be having Tania Johnson from the Institute of Child Psychology. Tania was born in South Africa, where she received honors degree in psychology. She spent several years teaching in Taiwan before adventuring to places like Mount Everest Base Camp and the Andes in Peru and Bolivia. She then completed a one-year internship at cancer treatment centers in America in Chicago, where her focus was on supporting patients in a stem cell unit. Tania then earned her master's degree in counseling from the City University of Seattle. She and her husband were foster parents to four First Nation children for 5 years and have two bio children of their own. She currently supervises master's level students and professional psychologists. Tania works primarily from the perspective of attachment theory, which focuses on bonds between parents and children. Her gift, both in therapy room and when writing, is to translate the latest research into concrete strategies that parents can implement in everyday life with their children. She's also an author of the Parenting Handbook, co-author with Tammy Schauman as well. They're both founders of the Institute of Child Psychology. So welcome, Tania, to this space.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It's such an honor. I always have so much fun when we chat. And I think it was last week. It's so funny in the summer. I'm like, when did we meet last? It was as recently as last week. But I know that you and I both have a shared passion for just health and wellness and play within early childhood. So it's what makes you a great friend already.
Totally agree. Happened to stumble upon the institute probably 5 years ago or about 4 years ago in the middle of the pandemic, and ever since fell in love. I love what you do. Your membership also is home to one of my courses, which I'm very proud to be part of your resources. I want to start off with this amazing topic, executive functions. And actually today I went to instruct a group on play and the importance of play in childhood, because I feel that there's a big need for play nowadays because it's becoming extinct. And I always say we're going through a different kind of pandemic. Children struggle playing, children do not get initiated in play. But before we move into the play topic, I want you to explain briefly what are executive functions and how do they relate to play?
Beautiful question. So executive functions are all of those things that teachers love. So it's our ability to plan, to problem solve, to order elements within a story, to prioritize, to consider different perspectives, to consider the past and the future, and then come up with a decision that's going to impact us right now. So really, when our kids sit in school, in classrooms, those are a lot of the skills that are underlying their capacity to be able to complete the work in front of them. So in a nutshell, those are executive functioning skills. So I think so often people go, okay, so that all sounds very kind of academic. What does it have to do with play? But we know that play is the absolute building block of executive functioning skills. We need play to build big, beautiful brains. All mammals play. Unfortunately, as you said, Mariana, our little babies are playing less and less and less. But they need to play in order to be able to develop, to grow. So can I just jump in with an example there of executive functioning skills? Think about when a child is on a playground at the park and they have to negotiate roles and rules with other kids. Who's going to be doing what? What happens when somebody's not acting fairly? What happens when I win or lose? How do I learn a new skill? What do I need to do next? Okay, now I've finished playing with my friends. I'm going to go to the monkey bars. What do I need to do next on those monkey bars? How do I reach my hand? How do I tolerate stress? Oh no, I can't get to the monkey bar. What do I need to do next? All of those little decisions that as adults, when we sit on the park bench, maybe, unless your kids are calling you all the time in an ideal world, but when we sit on the bench and we watch them, we go, let's just play. We're just playing at the park. But there are so many incredible things that are happening in those moments that really help to create beautiful, strong neural connections in their brain. That's how they learn.
I always like to say that the executive functions are like the mattress of the bed, because it's kind of this cushion that gets everything ready for the next step. Not only in academics, we tend to see a lot of these executive functions happening at school because that's where the kids spend the majority of their time. But it also happens and are needed for overall life and at home as well. I always had this thing with the term because it sounds so beautiful and so complex. And I feel like now we have a little bit more of information on what they are and how can they help our children, but also because there's an increase of children with diagnosis and lack of skills over diagnosis. But before we move into that topic, these executive functions are that main structure for success in life overall. As you mentioned, we want children to be able to plan, to organize, to have that self-control with it, which is so hard in young children, to have this inhibition, to have this flexible thinking, to be able to shift from one thing to the other. All these skills, we grow in this world, and we are more than growing, we are taking leaps into stages. We have all the AI coming up and solves all of our problems, and kids are getting everything done through AI. But AI can't do anything without a person behind with strong executive function, right? So all the educational system and our parenting should also be focused on this executive functioning, which are skills that no one will be able to replace for us. Can we talk a little bit about open-ended play? And I'm a fan, about open-ended play and the importance of this type of play when it comes to executive functioning. Also talking a little bit about when do these executive functions stop being developed, and why is it so crucial to have play foster executive functions?
Great questions. So, really, when we're looking at open ended play, it's putting children in environments, and they don't have to be fancy environments. It can be outside. Outside is my absolute favorite all the time. It can be outside. It can be in a room with just a few toys. We actually know that fewer toys that are more open-ended in nature, we'll talk about what those look like in a second, but fewer toys help kids to play deeper. When they have tons of toys everywhere, what happens is that they stay in the exploratory stage. So they never actually get deeply into really looking and playing with that toy. And that's where the executive functioning skills kick in, when they go like, oh, look at these blocks over here. What do I do with the blocks? So we want fewer toys. We want them outside if possible. When we look at open-ended toys, we're really looking, in a nutshell, at toys that inspire the imagination, that don't have a definite ending. So it's not, for example, a toy that I can turn on and it beeps and it whirls, and then if I don't put enough discs to the side, then my turn is over. That's a closed-ended toy. An open-ended toy are things like blocks, like silk scarves, nature items, little sticks, seashells, as an example, musical instruments. We've got a few dress-up clothes, things that we can make forts out of. Anything where a child goes, oh, okay. That could be a space rocket. That could be a car. That could be an apartment block. They get to decide what actually happens with their toy. One of the things that I often see, though, with those open-ended toys, where we kind of lose the value of it, is an adult that's hovering nearby, that comes to define what those toys actually should be, or what they should look like, or this is for building, or this is for counting, or the silk scarves are for wrapping it as a hat around your head. That's not what we want. We want to give our children lots of space and time to explore, to be bored. Often when they're bored, that's when magical things happen for them. So lots of space. Those executive functioning skills, and Mariana, I love what you said about the mattress. I'm going to use that going forward. It's such a beautiful analogy. And then when we do the social studies or whatever it is, it's just, those are the duvets that go on
Yes.
top. but the mattress is there. But what we know about the brain or the prefrontal cortex, which houses those executive function skills, so this is the thinking brain, it's basically located here, is that it's developing fairly rapidly all the way through childhood, through those teen years, and actually close to about our 30s. So 26, 27 years old is when we start to see a slowdown. But those early years, particularly 0 to 5, we see lots of shifts and changes and growth. It's incredible. The only other time actually in the lifespan that we see that sort of growth is at puberty. So 12 or 13, we also see another burst of neural activities. Even though there's ongoing activity, it's those early years, it's at puberty, and then we see continued growth of that prefrontal cortex all the way through until our 27, 28, 29. The one thing that I often say about play is very often we think about play as just being for our kids, but we need our teens to keep on playing. They just play differently.
Mhm.
And as adults, there's also play personalities as adults. Our children are more likely to play if we keep on playing. So even though we often focus on play for little ones, we really want to see play evolving as one of the foundational wellness blocks throughout the lifespan.
I totally agree with you. And I want to add to this that executive functions are a set of skills that take time developing. It will take years to fully develop in a human being. It will take up to 30 years. So we cannot expect a 5-year old to have a fully awareness of his or her body. We cannot expect a 5-year old to not melt down at some specific moments and not have this self control. There are expectations per age, but little by little, we will be building these executive functions. I want to ask you, are these set of skills something that we just turn on and off? Is it something that we train? How does that actually work?
Mhm, mhm. So I love that caveat, Mariana, that we're really developing these skills over time. What we find is that, for example, developing a feeling of competency, right? So every time I'm like, "Oh, I went to the park and I can do this new thing at the park," that's developing competency right there. So we see that these skills are developed over time, but it has to be repeated experiences. So a kid that goes once to the park and doesn't have a caregiver or a parent who's hovering nearby, telling them, be careful, and stopping their every move, they go once, and just that one time, they're allowed to do the monkey bars without having an adult hovering nearby. But then that experience isn't repeated. We know that those strong neural connections actually happen through repeated experiences. And they don't have to be identical. So one time I go to the park, I can do the monkey bars. The next time, I can jump across stepping stones and I go, oh, I am capable. I am competent. It gets stronger. The neural connection in my brain of competency gets stronger. And then I figure out I was able to take two kids who were having a fight in the park. They were both fighting over who was going to go on the slide. And I said, hey guys, why don't we all go over to the swings instead? Came up with a solution for a problem. That's a feeling of competency. So every time we have repeated experiences of competency, that connection in our brain grows stronger and we're more likely to be able to call on it during different times. However, when our children go through periods of stress, we will often see what we call regressive behavior, where we'll see them going back. So let's say they're 5, and then suddenly we start seeing things that happened maybe when they were 3, where they had big feelings, where they weren't able to control their impulses, where we might see things like potty training go out we might see that they start at 5, they're not potty training for many kids, but we might see that they might have aggressive behavior when it comes to toileting, as an example. So often we'll see that when kids are under a lot of stress, those executive functioning skills feel as if they become a little bit unwired. But we also know that with the proper supports in place, that we can completely put that wiring back into place for our children.
So basically, you're saying that the executive functions need to go work out at the gym, and the more they work out, the stronger they get, right?
Yes. And sometimes we might pull a muscle and then we're not able to pick up those barbells that day. But within time, we'll go back and we'll be able to actually complete the same skill because we have that muscle memory. And it's the same with the executive functioning skills.
I've witnessed something very personal. I'm going to share here, Tanya. When I started doing the learning garage, open-ended play is available at all times. Kids
Mm.
are um, open to go and play whenever they want in the open-ended space is one more goal. And these kids have been growing with me under the homeschool program, and they've been with me since they were 5. Now some of them are 8, 9, some 10, and I cannot believe that one's going to be 11. And these kids have been playing with open-ended play for a long time. I saw a couple of them when they first started, not with a red flag, but I have an eye, and I saw that their executive functioning was not as strong. And within time and this constant repetition of open-ended play, I witnessed a huge change within also the academics. I feel that this open-ended play gives children the opportunity to plan, to organize, to come up with ideas, to shift from here and there, to focus, to be able to have a plan and execute that plan, to be able to have that self-control for the rest of the kids, for their buildings, for their creations, and be able to develop all executive functions to a great extent. So I truly believe that having open-ended play both at home and at school, it's a great way or workout for these executive functions. Of course, it's not the only workout. And I've also witnessed something else that is really causing my attention, and it worries me, which is the overdiagnose of ADHD, the overdiagnose of social difficulties, the overdiagnose of aggressive behaviors, the overdiagnose of OTs, that also children go into occupational therapy, which also worries me because I also see the problematic with the screen time and with children not being able to play. And if children don't play, they are sacrificing executive functioning. If children overdo screens, they're sacrificing executive functioning amongst some of the skills. So we're witnessing a generation of children that are lacking foundations, and then they're being misunderstood for a diagnosis that might not necessarily be a diagnosis per se. What do you have to say around that?
Yeah, so much. So I think really what we're seeing is that our children haven't evolved quickly enough to actually deal with screens. So what's happening is our kids who should be playing, as I said, play is how kids learn. That's how all mammals learn. But what we're seeing is that our kids are lying sedentary now, and they're on a screen for hours, and they're being bombarded with chaotic images. So we have these TV shows that change every couple of seconds. There's something else happening in these TV shows. And a lot of our kids, because our brains weren't designed to be able to take in all of the stimulation but not move. We're designed to move. Our children are designed to move. And so we're seeing that lots of our kids are not hitting those developmental milestones as they should. We're seeing that the research right now is showing us not necessarily causation, but correlation with a number of different diagnoses for our children. I think it comes from a number of different places. Like I said, one, I think it's not hitting those developmental milestones. I think two, I think that for our kids, because there isn't repeated practices of those executive functioning skills on the playground, outside, building a fort, by the creek, riding bikes, because they don't have those repeated experiences, it's just not there. It's like we're missing the stairs of the house in the architecture. You know, the floors are there because when our kids are born, they're born with the basic architecture of the brain. So we've got the lower brain, midbrain, top brain. It's way more complex than that, but just to explain it simply, that architecture is there, but it's through our experiences, it's through play that we build what the inside, the interior of that house looks like. And for many kiddos, unfortunately, the interior of that house is just lacking in furnishing because they're not doing anything, because tech has become essentially an experience blocker.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And I feel like sometimes we like to point out screens too much. And I totally feel that we are overdoing screens, that there's a lot of things that we can do to decrease the amount of screen time and to inform parents and educators. But it's not only about judging the screens, it's about teaching children how to use the screens properly, teaching families how to set the boundaries and how to inform themselves and their children to be able to use the devices properly for life and for their journey, right? So it's not about finding a culprit, it's about actually opening our eyes and seeing that development overall is being impacted big time, and executive functioning is such a powerful mattress that we cannot afford not to have a mattress to sleep on. It's the foundation of academics. It's the foundation of us being able to plan a trip to. The other morning, I was sharing this experience yesterday. I was cooking, and my children have multiple food allergies, all of them different allergies, and it's a journey itself. I don't have any, so my breakfast is on. I have to make three types of breakfast. We cannot afford to not have lunch because I mean they are allergic to the world, so I need to cook lunch. So in the morning, I'm making breakfast. I'm making Max's pancakes. I have to think about Alberto's recipe with banana that the other one cannot eat. I'm making myself toast bread, eggs, and then I'm thinking about lunch and what am I going to throw into the Instapot, then the rice cooker, and my brain is going like that, and I am only able to do that because of my executive functioning, which is not as sharp because I have three kids and two of them do not sleep well. So
Mhm.
instead, we use executive functions every single day of our lives. And children are developing all this executive functioning that might not be as strong in their adult years if we are not providing them the experiences to develop them in depth. You
Yeah.
also talk about this in your beautiful book that you also have here. Tania is the author of this book, which I'm going to provide the link in a second. You also talk chapter, what is it, 9? I don't remember the number of the chapter. Yes, 9. Wow, that's good.
Thank you.
The power of play. You talk a lot about play in that chapter. Can you do a brief summary of what you touch in there
Yeah.
regarding play?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I think first of all, just Mariana, on your last point there about, how often we're using executive functioning skills and we need it as adults. And it's not something that suddenly appears in adulthood. And this is something that we actually do touch on in that chapter, is that I think all of us as parents, as caregivers, as educators, what we want is for our children to be able to feel competency, to feel connection in their world, to have a voice. But those things don't just suddenly happen when they're 20, when they're 25, when they're 30. That's repeated practices again of being on the playground and saying, it's my turn, or you're in my space a little bit. Could we please step back a little bit? Or I don't think that was right. Our children will not one day stand in a boardroom if they choose to be in a boardroom, but will not stand in a boardroom one day and go, actually, I don't like what's happening with this work culture right now. How do I express that to everybody? And for many of our kids, because they're behind screens, they don't know now how to deeply connect with others, how to repair, how to go, I'm sorry, that was not okay, how to be vulnerable, what to do when your voice sounds shaky, but you have something important to say. All of those interactions happen through play, through connection, through being with others. And that is the beauty of what play brings. It's small, manageable doses, authenticity, stress, vulnerability with others that helps build bigger competencies later on in their world, which is
Which are
huge.
skills that AI nor any screen will be able to provide our children with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's it. I agree with you. Tech is here to stay. There's so many wonderful things that come from technology. We're talking today. There's people who are going to listen to us. There's so many incredible things that happen with tech, but we cannot let tech replace connection, replace play, replace imagination, replace time for our kids to be bored. I think kids don't know how to be bored anymore because the moment they're bored, we turn on a screen. But we know that when kids are bored, that actually is the birthplace of creativity for them. If we just leave them, I think so often kids will go like, they're frustrated and they say, I don't want to be bored, and they push back, and then parents give them the remote control. And I get it, maybe sometimes where I'm just like, I don't have the capacity to deal with this today. But really, if we're able to get over that hump with our kiddos, what happens is I don't want to do this. And we say, your brain is amazing, and I know that you can figure this out. You've got
I
this.
truly agree. Before we move into your play chapter, I have another question that I just
Mm.
popped into my head. And this is a good question because does every ADHD child or adult with the condition has a dysfunction in executive functioning? Are they more prone to have difficulty with executive functions? What happens with the rest? Do we all have to care about executive functioning, or is it only for children who are experiencing difficulty?
No. So such a good question. So yes, executive functioning, like you said, we all prefer to sleep on a mattress. We can sleep on the ground, but we all, not all, many people prefer to sleep on a mattress. So I would say that those executive functioning skills are absolutely important for everyone. You know, Mariana, your beautiful example there of like trying to do the lunch and trying to do the breakfast at the same time. We're all using them all of the time. Like even, today as connecting, it's like, okay, our time is 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I need to be available. What are the kids doing? There's a whole lot of things that are happening all of the time that we don't recognize as executive functioning skills, but they absolutely are. So, yes, everybody, it's a skill that we want to build. For our children who have been diagnosed and diagnosed correctly, there's lots of diagnoses that happen too quickly, but our kids that have been diagnosed correctly with ADHD, we know that those executive functioning skills can be behind this. 1 second. Okay, so we know that those executive functioning skills can be behind what we would see for their peers. But we keep on working with them. We keep strengthening them. They're just a little bit behind. What I often see, though, with my children with ADHD is that they have this kind of divergent creativity, which is beautiful. So
Mhm.
even though their play may look a little bit different. They're often, we know, often moving quite a bit, lots of hands-on activity, but they will often put together different concepts, different toys, different ideas in a way that other children may not. And that's where that open-ended play becomes so incredibly important.
Totally agree. All right, so let's wrap this up with your beautiful beautiful chapter on play. I really like. I've been choosing what chapters to read, and I'm not finished with the book, but I really enjoy this handbook. I think it's a great resource for both parents and educators, not only parents, to learn from different topics. So, can you please give us a summary on the play chapter?
Yeah. So really, and it's funny, we spoke to mom earlier today and she said, you know what, as I hit different things, I'm just choosing the chapter. So she's like, when my kid has a tantrum, I just choose it. I look at the toolbox. She's like, I'm not reading a cover to cover. I was like, we actually don't think that any parents out there are reading, maybe a few, but I think lots of parents are just like, oh my goodness, I need help. Where do I need to go in the book? Which is so great with the toolboxes because you can just go directly. So really what we look at on the play chapter, how does play nurture executive functioning skills, what we've spoken about today. We look at how play isn't always what you think it is, that, so often we think that play needs to look a specific way, but play can also be our children working alongside us, gardening with us, cooking with us. So really moving from like every single second of a child's play has to be heavily orchestrated to going, when a child is immersed in an activity, when they're moving their hands, when their brain is firing, that right there is play. We look at how play is an antidote to stress. So, we'll go back to the monkey bars. When that kid goes across the monkey bars, each time they have this little jolt of adrenaline that goes, am I going to fall? And it's those tiny little jolts of stress that prepares them for bigger stresses. So it's almost like an immunization towards stress. When kids have no stress in their world, they really hit those road bumps hard later on in life. And, Mariana, we're seeing that our teens who are becoming young adults and are hitting those college years, that age group across specifically United States, say North America, but the stats are out for the United States, that age group struggles the most with mental health concerns. And it's because a lot of these fundamental building blocks were not in place earlier for those kids. It's anxiety and depression are the top two that our young adults are struggling
Mhm.
with. So our play chapter takes you through the importance of play, what play can look like, and then we actually have a part 2 to our play chapter, which shows parents how to actually play with their kids and how to go even deeper into their play and understand their play from a deeper perspective.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the chapter. I think it's easy to read. It's useful, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right. So before we finish, Tanya, I can you please talk a little bit about your memberships? You have an amazing membership with courses and resources for parents and educators. As I mentioned before, my course "It's Time to Play" is part of your membership. But can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So we actually now our membership, it's been so much fun. We have about 80 different courses from like amazing professionals like yourself all over the world who've all come in with their expertise. And courses range in length. So we've got a few that are an hour long, and then we have some that are 7 hours long. But we have on a variety of topics. So, play, resilience, depression, anxiety, ADHD, anger, family wellness, the importance of family dinners, tech, anything that you can think about for kids. Right now, we have it in there for parents and professionals to go in and have a look. So, we've got all of our courses. We have parenting scripts, what to say to your kid when, dot, 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 all those parenting things that arise. We've got parenting toolbox. We have our podcast in there. We have our Instagram reels. We have our infographics. We do community webinars that Mariana's been on a couple of times with us. So there is a ton. It's really robust. There's a ton happening in that membership. Just so much fun because it really is people coming together to go, we can do something different for our kids.
And all of you who are listening will be listening. I will send out a gift from Tami and Tania for the membership. So keep an eye out on that. I also want to share with you that we will be launching, Developing Minds will be launching soon, executive function and play course. It will be a 7-module course that will talk about what are executive functions, how to develop them, how do they look like at home, what strategies to use, how to use them in the classroom as a way of teaching. We're coming up with a cool library of activities that actually came out of my brain and for the Play Lab, which is also my membership. So I will be launching this course by the end of this month, and everyone who's been here will get a discount for a pre-sale pre-launch deal that no one will get. So I will send out that code as well. So that said, Tania, thank you very much for your time. I know it's super valuable. I don't want to overdo it. I always enjoy learning from you, talking to you, and playing around with all this information that at the end of the day, our main cause is to share with the world information that will shape children's life.
Oh, so beautiful. Such an honor to be here. It's always such a treat, Mariana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow, just like that, a golden nugget of episode around executive functions. I want to thank Lisette Sanchez for helping me make this podcast a reality and editing the episodes. Thank you so much for your support, especially when I'm a busy mom that is trying to juggle all the balls. This allows all these powerful messages to go around the world and help parents and educators get more meaningful tools. I want to thank all of you listeners for being here and wanting to learn more about topics that can rethink education. I also want to share with you that we will be launching on August 26th a new course on executive functions and play. This course will be available to all parents and educators, and we look into giving you resources to implement executive functions both at home and at school. We will be giving strategies, we will be talking about all of them, and this will be a great way to get started within executive functions as a mainstream way of education within the curriculum and to help children thrive in life. You can find all this information in the show's notes.